I remember this moment so clearly. It was the moment that I thought, this is it. This is the end of my life. I was sitting under a beautiful oak tree, giant oak tree in a friend's garden at a family celebration. There must have been about 60 people there. And I remember having my two youngest children with me, a 6-month-old baby in a pushchair and a then 2-year-old. And in this moment, everything went black. I couldn't see. It was broad daylight. To be absolutely accurate, almost everything went black. I could only see the very top of my visual fields. I could make out the foreheads of both my boys, and I could see the very top branches of this oak tree. I knew I was in trouble, and I tried to communicate this to the person sitting next to me. But I couldn't get the words out. I couldn't speak. I couldn't articulate. This was almost 20 years ago, and I remember this as clearly now as I did then. I was taken urgently to the academic hospital. I was rushed in for a CT scan of the brain. And what I remember 20 years later is that while I was lying in the scanner, the tunnel of the scanner, the image in my head was that of being buried. I was so sure this was the end. There were numerous things that I was thinking of in terms of the diagnosis. Thank goodness, there was no brain hemorrhage, there was no brain tumor, no clot, all the things I had suspected. As a medical doctor, it's very difficult not to anticipate the worst. And after weeks and weeks of hospital investigations and possible diagnoses, the diagnosis was called a RIND, a reversible ischemic neurological deficit, a term no longer used in medicine. It's now called a temporary stroke, 48 hours. Within about 48 hours, my visual and speech disturbances settled. But this was followed by at least 6 months of severe daily migraines and at least a year of intense fatigue. Very strange experience for a high-energy person. It took many, many years for me to regain my real strength and energy. I'd been a marathon runner, I had 5 small children, and a very busy medical practice. I certainly had been under huge stress and pressure, but didn't quite realize. A disconnect of sorts, a frightening, frightening experience. Undoubtedly, I'd experienced a type of shutdown. Call it burnout, if you will. The term burnout is not really a scientific or medical term. However, it does describe the experience of hitting the wall. I don't know if anyone here has ever, to a greater or a lesser degree, ever experienced something similar. The moment where you hit the wall or you fall off the edge and you know that something has to change. Let's begin a brief journey together, this blueprint. What is this extraordinary life we seek? And how do we reach it? We all want success. We want to achieve something in our lives. We desire to do good and contribute. As humans, we have an internal drive towards accomplishment. And we also want to be extraordinary. We also want to be exceptional. Is it real? Is it achievable? What do we see in our digital, electronic, tech age? We see beautiful, incredible, smart people doing extraordinary things. Yes? What I call the front end of our lives. All in perfect HD. Just as on our screens, just as on our Macs, our laptops, our smartphones, in high definition clarity, we see this wonderful front end. Is it real? Is it achievable? It's not easy. We live in an extremely competitive world. We live in a fast-paced, rapidly changing world where we have to constantly adapt and keep up. And we have also become hardwired for incredible urgency and hurry. Everything, even the non-urgent, is performed at top speed. We have become addicted to success, but we have become as addicted to the pace of living as to the outcome. And then, for all of us, we have a parallel experience occurring in our lives, what I call the back end. What is going on behind the screen? We may be depleted. We may be disappointed with how life is unfolding. We experience setbacks. We experience life's hardships. We experience rejections. I've had many, many of those. And at times we struggle to keep up with the demands and the pace of our living. We're exhausted, possibly anxious, and even depressed. A 1 in 5 chance of all of us experiencing a depression at some stage in our life. And no one is immune. Lots of what I call back-end disruptions, disturbances, software errors. And yet, we continue to make sure we are doing everything to keep the front end burning bright, regardless of what's going on in the back end. And the more we attempt to focus on the front end, the more disconnected we become, the more exhausted we become, until for many, the inevitable occurs, as with my experience. Add to this that our culture measures success by our ability to project strength and confidence at all times. Front-end strength, front-end performance, front-end perfection, back-end errors, back-end disruptions, back-end exhaustion, ignore. And so a huge disconnect happens. And eventually, with enough pressure, may have happened to you, may yet happen to you, but with enough pressure, the database is overloaded, and there's a crash. Let's move on to another front-end, back-end scenario going on in our lives, right here in our brains. We have this incredible structure right at the front of our brains called the prefrontal cortex. It's the most advanced evolutionary part of the human. Our analytical, thinking, smart brain. And then towards the back, buried in the structures towards the back, we have a group of structures called the limbic system. I want you to hold that concept for a few moments, and we'll come back shortly, because I want to share with you 2 conventional wisdoms that we live with, that we see as truths. And the first one is that stress is harmful and damaging to your body and brain. And the second one is, in order to achieve greatness, be resilient. You've all heard that. So let's deal very briefly with the first one. What is stress? It is feeling overloaded, feeling overwhelmed. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. If we scientifically and clearly define it, stress is simply the release of a chemical in your body. No more, no less. We have an incredible autonomic nervous system. It's automatic. It moves between 2 phases, the first being the stress response, facilitated by adrenaline. When a danger occurs, or a perceived danger, not a real danger, same thing happens, adrenaline is released in the body. Blood shunts into the muscles, heart beats much faster, heart rate goes up, breathing becomes shallow, brain is on hyper alert, all enabling us to escape danger, or enabling us to perform at our peak. The problem with being at our peak is it's very easy to fall off. And then the opposite phase of this nervous system, the relaxation response, is when the opposite happens. Blood pressure goes down, heart rate goes down, blood shunts back to the central organs, and bodies and muscles relax. This is when healing takes place. This is when we achieve some equilibrium. And this should kick in automatically. Adrenaline switches off, right? Wrong. We have overridden the off switch. We have chronically adapted to remaining in the on position, beep, 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 continuously. We override the system consciously and unconsciously. We release cortisol, another hormone, and we remain stuck in the stress response. And yes, it can be harmful and damaging. But no, it doesn't have to be like this. Here's the twist. Most stress is mostly good for you. Doesn't sound like a good word? Well, let me give you some synonyms. Stress is drive. Stress is passion. Stress is determination. Stress is motivation. It is stress that facilitates your performance and your success. Stress is not the enemy. So, we need to engage the positive stress in the same way as we engage a muscle. When you go off to the gym and you lift a weight, or lift your body weight in Pilates or yoga or whatever you choose to do, you are stressing that muscle to create growth. And what do you do afterwards? You come home and you recover. But we don't do that in our lives. So the real enemy is lack of recovery, not stress. Here's a question. What do you do when your computer screen freezes? Or the database crashes, overloaded crashes? You stop, you get very frustrated because you want to keep going, and you reboot. Our brain and our bodies requires exactly the same. Stop, shut down, reset, recover, reboot. But there is no quick fix. No pill, no medication, no supplement, no zinc, no magnesium will do it. But the conscious decision to create packets of recovery, little packets, little pockets of recovery into your day, into your week, into your life. What do I do to reboot? If in the midst of a chaotic day, I'll do 15 to 20 minutes of meditation. If there's no time, I'll do 5 minutes of mindfulness. If there's no time, I'll do 1 minute of breathing. But I've got to stop and reboot. Before work, I've got to go swim some laps. After work, I've got to take an ocean swim or run. Play in the park with a grandchild. You find your reboot methodology. Moving on to the second so-called truth, conventional wisdom, be resilient. You can no more be resilient than you can be muscular. I'll never be muscular. Or be wise. Resilience is a transformation that occurs after the fact. Resilience is defined as the ability to bounce back from failure or setback. I don't know about you, I don't bounce. I crawl back from rejections and failure. But resilience is that ineffable quality that allows some people to be knocked down by life and come back stronger than ever. So no, you cannot be resilient. But yes, you can become resilient. You can literally shift the set point in your neural pathways by the choices you make. By engaging the back end. How, you may ask? By being authentic, by being you, real you, by being courageous, taking risks, by being emotionally honest, by merging what the world sees with a healthy back end. The more you act in that way, the more it becomes hardwired into your brain circuitry, which brings me right back into the brain where I promised I would return. Front end, back end, numerous neural pathways between the two. Let us observe a few common negative emotions together that we all feel every day. Fear, frustration, anger, fury. A message is sent at lightning speed from the limbic system to the prefrontal cortex. But what does our rational thinking, analytical super brain do? Here, it says go away, leave me alone, override, disconnect, disregard. Here again, we have an identical disconnect with the front end rational self that we have, ignoring the emotional cues, which are the keys, not only to insight and emotional intelligence, but are the keys to real, authentic success. Now I'm going to tell you a piece of science that I hope will get you jumping off the edge of your chairs. I haven't seen you do it yet, because a lot of this doesn't sound like science. But through numerous brain scans using PET scanning, scientists have been able to show that resilience is not born here in the thinking brain. It develops and is born in the neurons of the limbic system towards the back of your brain. So, the blueprint to move from overwhelmed, exhausted, depleted, frustrated, to meaningful, passionate, healthy stress, drive. The blueprint to move from ordinary to extraordinary requires us to do three things. Recover intermittently. Create those pockets of recovery. Rewire your brain. You have it within your power. Reconnect front end and back end. Live your authentic truth. The more we engage with the back end, the more there is brain growth. Professor Carol Dweck, who you may have read some of her work, who has, from Stanford University, has done extensive research into this area of neuroscience, explains that there is a fundamental difference in the minds of successful people. She calls this a growth mindset. So the next time you feel like you are about to hit the wall, or fall over the edge, or depleted, or anxious, remember my story. Don't get to break point. Stop, reset, recover, find your ways to reboot, and reach out and connect. The greatest thing about technology and the world we live in is the potential for great connection. And yet, we all live with lots of senses of disconnectedness. How much more powerful would our world be? How much more effective would you and I be if we truly understood the power, the genuine power of connection within our brains, within our bodies, with each other, and with the world? A congruence of front end and back end will transform your lives to truly extraordinary.